I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Okay, as I said, good folks, in a moment, I'm hoping we're going to be joined by I'm sorry. I'm hoping we're going to be joined in just a minute by Casandra Greer-Lee, who is the now widow of uh, anyway, we're going to get to her story in just a minute. It's a powerful and unbelievable story, and get to her work around 132 calls, um, uh, in just a minute, and hopefully she'll get here, and we'll get her on in just well, as soon as she does, to talk about it. But joining us now is Dr. Lashon Latrice, who Casandra put me in touch with, who, among many other things, received her Ph.D. in community psychology from National Louis University. Sorry. Lashon was born and raised on the south side of Chicago in the Inglewood community. She knew from her studies as a child she wanted to be an entrepreneur and decided to pursue her education at National Louis University. Her bio is extensive and long. She's engaged again in community psychology and is apparently also involved in this case. So I'm going to invite her on now. Welcome. Good morning to you, Professor.
Thank you.
And you said okay. So Casandra will be joining us shortly. Okay, great.
Yes.
So let's start with you. If you would, please add anything to your bio or clean up anything that you need to, and then certainly let's start to lay out what's going on here in Cook County, because what is being shared with me is just unfortunately consistent but crazy.
Absolutely. You said more than enough about my background. I will add this caveat though. I am a community psychologist. However, I am a victim of mass incarceration too. And I often add that so people can understand why I fight the way that I fight, because
Right on.
wherever there's injustice, if you don't speak up, it's going to continue to, perpetuate. And so I actually was just a regular business owner who has always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that's what I strive to be. And then I had a situation happen to me with my family member. That particular family member knew somebody within the Department of Justice system, and then from there, everything went downhill. So I fought for 7 to 8 years, but I am a victim of mass incarceration, and I do have a very unique story, but however, I served time in a federal prison for just under 4 years. So, upon even having to deal with that type of structure, I had never really had any interaction with the law. Um, my family was turned upside down. I'm a mother, a wife. It was so many different aspects. But when you can walk inside of some walls and your life is completely different, most people would never know what that's like until they have to deal with it. So I have developed a sisterhood with a number of women that I met on the inside. And I always vowed that once I came out of that situation, that I would be a voice for those others who did not have the same resources that I had.
Well, what I thought we would do, if it's all right, is since she sent me the link and I was looking through it and just, I mean, totally thrown for a loop here. I thought as an intro, I would share the video that's on Cassandra's 132 Calls website as an intro, and then we can give her a chance to jump in, having already introduced her and also giving you a little bit and us a little bit more context to talk about here. So again, this is from Casandra Greer-Lee's website, 132calls.com. Let's just check this out.
Went ahead and let her open the blinds, but it was kind of dim because it was 7:30 at night. But I told him leave it open for the morning. But unfortunately, that morning didn't come for my husband. My name is Casandra Greer, and I am the wife of Nicholas Lee. I am employed by Chicago Public Schools. I teach first grade. I have been teaching for over 14 years, but now my passion has drifted. My husband was incarcerated at the Cook County Jail. He wasn't convicted of anything. The living conditions was deplorable. It was absolutely horrible. At the beginning of March, he noticed that there were two sick inmates on his tier. It was a dormitory unit where my husband and 50 other gentlemen shared a common space. So there was really nowhere for him to like social distance or self quarantine. So he was taking the necessary precautions that he could with what he had because he had no sanitizing products, no anything to clean around the area, just nothing. So God, please try to cover. Days went by, the gentleman got sicker. They got sicker. One day, one of the gentlemen was so sick, he was calling out saying that he felt like he was about to pass out. I began to become more and more worried. So now I'm calling more and more. March 28th, finally answered the phone. She informed me that due to this pandemic, they were short staffed. There were no social workers that I could speak with. I asked for a sheriff. There were none available to speak with me. I left my name and number in hopes that someone would come contact me so I can get my husband moved off that tier and get the other gentleman help. That never happened. I pulled up my phone records and I started to count. I got to 132. March 29th, he had a sore throat. That was the first symptom that he had. When he called me, he said, "Baby, I don't feel well." He said, "My throat is hurting." He said, "Oh my God." He's like, "Have you heard from anyone?"
It's terrible. Uh, could you add anything to some context about what we saw there? What has are you involved with this particular case? And then so what is going
So,
on? What happened? Yeah.
so
Wow.
I met my sister Cassandra shortly after that time. I was introduced to her by another individual who saw her story and they wanted me to meet her. And so we met, and I instantly latched on to her story because my heart went out to the pain that she had to experience in trying to get all the resources for her husband and to no avail. And so at that time, when I was introduced to her, I thought, what could I possibly do to help her get her story out? And so my words to her was, I'm only one person. I can do whatever I can with the resources I have. But the more you talk about this situation, the more it will become a conversation that people are trying to avoid, because at this time there were a number of inmates sick inside of Cook County Jail, and the administrative staff, all the way up to the sheriff Tom Dart, were well aware of how many people were sick, but they were trying to cover it up as much as they could.
So was where wow. So
So
what
from this
yeah.
day that I met Cassandra, when I tell you she has literally been a voice for those inmates, even after her husband died, she used her grief to fight for all the other inmates, and she has never stopped. And it's grown into this huge fight where so many people who have loved ones inside of Cook County Jail and other prisons around the state of Illinois have been reaching out to her. And so I basically stood behind her as a support mechanism, to be able to just basically strengthen whatever it is that she already has, because this is a resilient sister. The fight that she has is unbelievable, because this is how she's pushing through her pain, and many people can relate to it. And that's what's attracting people to assist in this fight. So it's an ongoing fight, an uphill battle. I'll let her tell you some of the things she's done, but she's garnered national attention with this fight. And even though some people feel just as if those on the inside, the administrators, they feel like these are inmates. Why are we concerned about them? But just for me, for the sake of humanity and for the sake of the lives of, these are mothers and fathers, these people have families. But when people see people behind the walls, they often don't see them as people. They see them as just a number or someone who's done something wrong, but they don't really know the backstories. They don't understand the family structures that are connected to them, and they don't know how it affects the community when these lives are taken like this. And so for me, I'm in for the long haul. This is one of those things that whenever I can bring people to or bring attention to it, whatever we do outside of Cook County Jail and any other prison, it is just something that is a phenomenal thing to be a part of, because you are literally changing the course of history by trying to save as many lives as you can.
Could you give any context to Cook County Jail for those not familiar? I'm not by any means an expert, but I know it has an infamous history, particularly as it relates to Black inmates. Is there anything you could tell us about that history or the context,
yeah.
or and even what's going on today? Yeah.
So Cook County Jail is one of the largest county jails in the country. What people don't realize is many jails that are supposed to be similar to Cook County Jail pattern themselves off of the practices that are done, any sort of protocols and things that are lined up in Cook County Jail, they use as a guidebook for the smaller jails that exist in other municipalities throughout the country. And so they're often looked at in that manner. But what's not being seen is the real story behind the walls. I had the opportunity to work inside Cook County Jail before this happened with my sister Casandra. And I worked for an agency, and we had a program inside there. So I was in several tiers and some of the main divisions inside of the jail. And the conditions are definitely deplorable, just like she said. But also the treatment of the inmates is what I notated and what stuck out for me. Most of the guards, and I'm not going to say all of them, but most of the guards almost function as if they're judge and jury. So let's keep in mind that Cook County Jail is made up of mostly pretrial detainees. So these people have not had their day in court. They have not been convicted of anything. But to be housed in tiers where you're overcrowded and you're on top of each other, no proper ventilation, no proper air, nothing inside the prison looks as if you're rehabilitating or doing any sort of thing to build someone up. And we often see the sheriff talking on the other side, but on his side, he has everyone thinking that the prison is this wonderful place to be, and there are so many different programs and things in there. But I've watched firsthand, and I've had to say several things about how these inmates are being treated by the guards. It's almost as if there's an intentional type of aggravation being done to these young men. And I was only on the men's side. I wasn't on the female side, but I was only on the men's side. However, in that year and a half, 2 years that I was going in and out of the jail, I saw so many conditions. I mean, like these huge rats running around, and nobody thought it was abnormal. I could just think, what is that doing to the morale of people if you go into an area inside the jail where you're supposed to be sitting, even in a classroom type setting, and you see these huge rats? Like, they didn't think anything was wrong with that. It was so many other things that the inmates had to deal with, but nobody would really say anything, because if you look like you're helping the inmates, oftentimes you'll be ostracized. And so you can imagine the percentage of guards that, even if they have a certain amount of tact and care towards those inmates, they're going to be basically outcasted. So it's a very distasteful atmosphere for those who are incarcerated, and particularly it's largely comprised of the black young men that often come in and out from those facilities while they're awaiting trial. And the bad part is many of them wait for a few years before they ever go before a judge. And so that's what makes the prison, contributes to the overcrowding in the prison.
Yeah. It said, if I'm reading here correctly, it says there's 7,500 prisoners daily held in Cook County Jail. That sounds like a tremendous amount. And if in the video from Casandra, it was sounding like the overcrowding was also leading to a lack of medical attention and care, in addition to whatever's already, whatever lack of concern already exists. So what is now? I'm honestly, to be perfectly honest, and to say this on air, Fred Hampton Jr. sent me. He's the one that put me in touch with Casandra, and he also sent me an audio clip from what sounds like a call from inside Cook County Jail. And it's horrific. And I'm trying to get permission. I'm even asking right now. Like I haven't gotten word. Like I wasn't sure if he wanted me to air it or share it or not. And so I don't know so I'm not going to do it until I get clear on that. But even then, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure what value. I'm like, it's traumatic. And what he's saying is we need help immediately. People are getting killed in here. There's I mean, it was like 45 seconds of it, of what sound is just trauma. And so what is going on in there? Like, what is our people right now? Like is what happened to Cassandra's husband happening all over the place? And what is the response? I mean, you said Cassandra's had some national attention garnered. What is happening?
So what we've been doing is the inmates have reached out to Casandra through family members. They know that she's out there consistently. I'm out there as much as I can be, but she's out there a lot more. And because they see that she's bringing people from all walks of life out there, they have reached out to her through their family members. And so the phone call that you have, we were just there last Thursday and Saturday, and we had inmates calling directly, and we were able to connect their calls through the PA system while we were out there. So we got a chance to talk to quite a few inmates who were trying to get the message out that, hey, this virus that took the lives of so many people last year in here is now starting to prevail again, but we're not receiving the medical treatment. And then what we also learned was after a couple of those calls were made to us, there was some backlash to the inmates. And so that's what caused us to do an emergency action on last Saturday, because once they identified who the individuals were that were on the phone, a number of things happened where family members were not able to tell what was wrong. Somebody was rushed to the ER. All of a sudden they were sick. It was just treacherous. The behavior that is being perpetuated after they feel like you've exposed them, because the idea is for us on the outside of the walls not to know anything about what's going on behind the walls. And because it's that jail culture that's already been there for years, they are so used to getting away with the abuse and the mistreatment. They have never had adequate health care, because in those type of situations, your life is considered almost invaluable. It's something that, no one cares about you because you're inside of here and you belong to us. And so that mentality is what caused so many inmates to perish last year. There was a number of guards that perished, and even now, currently, there are so many guards who are infected, and that is how the inmates are getting infected. And that's
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're talking about deaths just from COVID. When you're talking about the people who are perishing just from COVID.
Yes,
okay.
Just from COVID. And we consider that a death sentence, because if you're going in there, you're waiting to see a judge, and you are allowed to be housed in a cell with a knowingly sick person who is not getting treatment. What other way is there to look at that? Because we know how contagious this has been, but we do know that it's been downplayed in certain parameters, like inside of Cook County Jail. But that actually is one of the largest super spreaders that has been a contributing factor to the communities, because not only are the guards sick, the guards can infect the inmates, and the inmates sometimes just sit and it bounces around and they affect each other. But when they're telling the guards and they're telling the administrative staff they can't breathe, they have issues with standing up, or their bodies are hurting, they literally wait until it's to the 9th hour, 11th hour before they show any sort of concern. And that lack of concern is costing many of these inmates their life and their well-being.
And meanwhile, all the day-to-day trauma of being imprisoned is still occurring. The overcrowding, the violence, the all the other hostilities is still happening, as was heard on that call, which is, again, why, I mean, so on the one hand, I would like for you, because hopefully Casandra can make it this morning, but I do want to also, so I wanted to also ask, if there's more on this specific issue that you would want us to know about. And then while you're here, I would want to ask you a little bit more about your own work beyond just this particular issue. And then otherwise we can, if necessary, we can always wrap and come back again. I mean, the invitations are always open here. But anyway,
I would like to expound a little bit about what we're doing out there currently.
Sure.
There is a weekly protest that takes place on Sundays. People join from everywhere, anywhere. Most of the time they are family members, or they are people who drive by and show some sort of support for Casandra, because there's been so many different organizations that have come out to show that they support what's going on out there by exposing. We also have a end solitary confinement initiative that's going on as well, where we're going around to the prisons to help those get their voices out who may not have proper hot water, proper food, proper medical inside. So we recently did a trip a few months ago to Logan Correctional Facility. That's a women's institution. And all of this spearheaded off of Casandra's efforts to highlight what's going on inside Cook County Jail. She gets a number of messages inbox to her where people are saying, hey, I'm over here, help me, help us get our message out. And so she often gets calls from some of the representatives in other states or downstate, and they want us to come and basically stage some sort of protest outside. And we've done that at Logan Correctional Facility. Of course, we were on the grounds. They made us get off the grounds, and that was fine. Chairman Fred Hampton was with us as well, but Casandra led that charge. And when we got out there, those women were so excited to see us. At first, they were walking around the compound, and they could actually see us from where they were. But once the warden and the officials came out and asked us to step off of the grounds, we just staged our action right outside, where we weren't on the federal property, but we were actually right outside on the driveway, so they could still see us. But after we left there, they received a number of calls from people thanking us, because what we were trying to show that the inhumane treatment should not be prevalent in these type of institutions. Many people feel like they don't necessarily know, but once it's brought to their attention that people are suffering and not receiving medical care, cannot bathe, they don't have adequate hot water, adequate food, or just the conditions at these institutions are so bad. Once people find those things out, then they just join in, and everybody's like so close to the situations of incarceration. We would think that it's few and far between, but it's actually not. We all know someone that's either been incarcerated or is currently incarcerated. And just being in that mindset and growing up where I grew up from, I kind of thought that was like a normal way of life. I thought the police came, they beat people up, they ended up in jail, and then everybody just rallied around them when they came home. But I thought that that was the normal way that the system worked. I never in a million years thought that the idea of law enforcement was to serve and protect. I didn't learn that until I became an adult. But as a child, I saw so many things that were just out of place that I just had a disdain for the way that I saw law enforcement. And so I kind of thought that they only navigated in our communities to harm us. And so just imagine getting into the adult life and dealing with the situations that you deal with personally. And then you meet people who are a part of Cook County Jail. You meet the administrators, the officials, the sheriff. You meet and they present it as, oh, it's this, it's that, it's beautiful. You have all these programs. And then you actually go inside and work and you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on in here? So it's just one of those things that when you see someone out here fighting, you want to know what is the energy that's keeping her going. And my sister Casandra has a resilience about herself where she feels like she did everything she could to save her husband, but he would have wanted her to look back for the others that are still in there fighting. And so she just became this icon, so to speak, for many people. And I actually just have a tremendous amount of respect for her, just in what her fight looks like. And she always talks about how she's not an activist. She says, "I'm not an activist. I'm a hurt wife who lost her husband." But I'm like, if you could see yourself from my vantage point, you are activating so many things and so many people, that all of these initiatives that are grown out of it is all because of the work that she's doing. And I guess that's, a way of pushing through the pain, because from day one, this is how she moved forward. And it's just phenomenal.
And right on cue, because not only is she an actual activist, and I think that one of the things that she may be unconsciously or consciously, I don't know her, responding to is that the way activism is popularly described nowadays is some sort of shady business arrangement. So she may not want to accept that what she is doing is straight up activism. So of course she's an activist, and most activists are just hurt wives, mothers, daughters, sons, what I mean? We're just out here hurt, struggling. That's the whole point. Nobody's supposed to be a professional activist. But right on cue, she's texting, telling me that because she's also heroically a teacher, right, as she let us know, that they're having some issue that they're an emergency at the school that is taking her attention. So I'm just letting her know it's not any issue with us. She's welcome back anytime, and whenever she can make it, we're happy to have her. Dr. Littrice, I don't know what your time is like. I'm happy to continue on with you if you have time. I have many more questions.
Yes, I have time.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I speak for her as much as I can. There are a couple of initiatives that Casandra Greer has started. She has a boxing program. It's going to be every Sunday. Young men in the community who we do not want to be lost to violence will have an opportunity to be professionally trained. And so they're going to start in her neighborhood, in the South Shore area. And right now, she is going to be the one that's pulling these individuals. The very first time was yesterday. There was a huge turnout of young men in the community who wanted to learn. They were a little, hesitant at first with the program, but this is going to be something that she is going to do, and I'm partnering with her. My organization is Make Noise for Change. She has the Justice for Nick Foundation. I am going to partner with her to make sure that we steer individuals. The overall idea that she wants to do is she wants a community center where the young people can come so that they can seek, positive reinforcement, just alternatives to ending up in the wrong situations. And she wants that to be part of the legacy left from her husband, Nicholas Lee. And so that's one of the main things that we're working together on. And I'll be traveling around with her. We're going to go to Springfield on October 19th. There's a number of different laws and legislation that are being pushed forward. And we want to have a presence there so that we can kind of let the legislators know that there is this huge crowd of people that would like to see certain changes taking place. She's now in the process of meeting with a couple of the other state representatives and officials within the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois so that we can talk about other things that can be done to help these inmates inside of Cook County Jail, because you do realize we have the Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart, but then there are other people that have a say as to what takes place in the facility. So there have been a number of successes. She's gotten with a couple of organizations, and they have reduced the budget, because with the budget, what we were asking for was not so much money to go into Cook County Jail, because that's going to the administrative staff, but let's utilize those funds on some of the resources that need to be done outside that would prevent an individual from having to experience the hardship and the trauma associated with being inside of Cook County Jail. Of course, we know there's been a number of programs that have aired where they showed the inside of Cook County Jail. They have certain tiers of they've kind of intentionally put people in to cause harm to them, and it's almost like a movie playing out in front of us, especially with the number of people that perished from COVID last year versus how many people are actually sick right now. And it's not a conversation that's being had in the public sector at all. Last year was a big deal because it was just starting. But this year it's kind of been downplayed, and because they want us to believe that there are all these preventive measures in place and protocols that have been taken, no one is really getting sick there. But it's just quite the opposite. And you heard it yourself from one of the phone calls that you heard, and we've heard it from about 5 or 6 inmates, and they kind of pass the phone around, and everyone is trying to get their name out and their story, and they want to know, what can we do to help them. So that's just a little bit about, I just wanted to make sure I can try to remember everything that's going on, but it is an uphill battle and an ongoing fight. My organization is Make Noise for Change. I was given this organization, the name of it, when I was going through my personal situation. I figured I met so many people on the inside who had these strange cases, strange ways. Now, just imagine, I'm new to this whole inmate world. And so when I met people and I'm thinking, well, why didn't you get a lawyer? Or why didn't you do this? And they're like, well, we don't have those resources, or we don't have access to this. And so I used to reach out to my family with the people's names and ask them if they could connect them with legal counsel that would assist them. And so I tried to make use of my time the best way possible, because I don't believe in accidents. I don't believe in mistakes. And I believe that if you have to go through something, it is for somebody else. It's not always for you. And so I just took what was meant to be evil, what was meant to be bad, and tried to turn it into something else. Now, I am a mother, so I was away from my children, and I just could not see how all of these women have these very unique stories and nobody knew anything about them. So I just tried to help in whatever way I could, whether it was reaching out to people's children's their family, anything that would help. But I knew that at the end of my journey in there, that there would be another part that I needed to do. And so I just kind of needed my path to be ordered as to which way I would go. So that's how I ended up back in school. And I first went back for my master's in public policy. And then I never told anyone where I had just come from. I literally started school 3 weeks after returning home. And that was all miraculous too. But I kept going. And once I saw the repercussions and the backlash of coming out a felon, and I saw that there was this negative connotation with it, I began to talk about it. And it was really weird how the conversation came out. I was like a student inside my master's program, and we had a guest police who was a retired superintendent, and they were bashing felons. And here I was, newly released, and sitting in the crowd. They had combined maybe 6 cohorts together, so it was like 250 people in a room, and everyone was raising their hand, and they were talking about how bad it was to have to go inside of a prison and come back, and how once somebody does something wrong, they're never going to be, the same. They never can be rehabilitated. There is no second chance. And I was listening to all of this, and I'm just holding on to my thoughts myself, saying, don't say anything, don't say anything. And finally, I just spontaneously combusted, and I raised my hand, and I'm like, excuse me, just home from prison. And of course, you could imagine what that made everyone look like, including the instructor, who was a white man, by the way. But everyone was so shocked, because I want to say I heard it about 50 times. Well, you don't look like someone who just came from prison. And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean I don't look like? And so I didn't tell my whole story. I just told them that there are a number of people who have been in prison, who are still in prison. You don't know their backstory, but please don't assume to know everything about every single person. I heard once a felon, always a felon. I heard so many different things. And I was just blown away, because I was in a setting where we were positioning ourselves to help people. And so all I could think about is, if I didn't intervene and say anything, how could I say I'm helping someone if they were helping people and they were bashing them simultaneously? It just didn't make any sense at all. So that's why I spoke up. And that's what led me into the PhD program. Once I told my story, then of course, the instructor who was teaching the class at that time, he came and apologized. It stopped the class midstream, and many of the people talking, they were just kind of embarrassed, and they just came and, tried to just offer some sort of, excuses or something. But I understand that people are people, and the perceptions that we develop are based on our experiences with other people and their situations. But my thing is, you can't group everybody into the same basket and just try to make this into a one set thing, because it's a systemic structure. And if we understand the money behind it, we understand, how lives are just sacrificed, and even what happens when a person enters in those type of situations, whether they're innocent or guilty. It's just it's a huge burden to bear.
Definitely, thank you for all of that. And unfortunately, I think there's too much of an overlap in that attitude and approach, even in higher education. That is this attitude towards students among some of my colleagues and our colleagues, that is quite hostile and demeaning. And you're like, aren't you supposed to be teaching them? Aren't we supposed to be working with them? And yet you seem to only talk about them as if they're almost like an enemy of sorts, and uncorrectable enemy. It's crazy. So points all well taken. Well, listen, I'm going to invite you and Casandra back. In fact, we can do this. We can stay in touch and invite you all back, work something out to come on our morning show, which resumes tomorrow throughout the week. Okay. Or back with me on this platform, on this show Friday, or we'll try again next week, because I think there's more I'd like to learn, and we definitely want to continue to follow this story. So you and she are welcome back at any point. But let me give you anything else that you wanted to conclude with or leave us with. And again, of course, we're going to invite people to follow up at 132calls.com, 132calls.com, where there's clearly more information and links to follow up and stay in touch. But and yeah, any concluding thoughts or anything else we need to get to before we wrap up this morning?
Yes, I just wanted to say that if there's anyone listening who is in the Chicagoland area that wants to assist with this fight, we welcome all with the right heart, the right mind to join us in the fight. You can find Casandra at the 132calls.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Casandra Greer. You can also find me, Lashon Latrice, and also Make Noise for Change. Those are all on Facebook as well. Every Sunday, there is an action, and then we also plan actions throughout the month of going to different prisons and things like that. So we have a number of events coming up. You can reach out to either one of us via direct message on Facebook. But we would just ask that people don't wait until it happens to their family. Let's be proactive and not reactive. And let's stand with people because ultimately this change is going to affect our communities, which of course affects our babies' futures.
Hey, listen, I don't know to what extent, certainly in Black and brown communities, that people are not affected, because I've seen other people do this. I've done this myself. I'm sure you've been in rooms and have maybe done this, where someone asks, has anyone been incarcerated or known someone who's been incarcerated? And if not 90% or more of the hands go up, I mean, it's actually unnerving to see how often and how many hands go up. So everybody, all of us are being impacted by this. So certainly the work you all are doing is important, and I thank you for it. And shout out, some of my best friends are counseling psychologists. So shout out to you and your work and your crew. And you're welcome back anytime. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much, Jared. We appreciate you. We look forward to coming back on, and I'll let Casandra know as well.
Please do. Please do. Anytime. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
All right. All right, everybody. I'm going to, again, thanks to Dr. Littrice. Thanks to Casandra. Shout out as well to Fred Hampton Jr. and Rosa Clemente, who brought me and all of us into the mix here. And yeah, and we'll stay in touch with them and with everybody else as much as we can to stay on top of these issues, as this is just crazy and remains important. So anyway, before we go, let me thank you all very much for joining me and us this morning. And those who see this later, thank you for joining as well. But just before we leave, a couple things. And one of them, of course, I want to encourage folks again that if you can at all, show some support. She has still not reached her goal. Our dear sister Katia Stitt needing some support with her medical bills. I put the link in the comments again. But please, if you can, give something, give anything, share this with your networks. And again, just as another reminder, Katia is one of the many under-heralded, underappreciated folks doing all the good work in the community that does not get attention. She does not want that kind of attention, does not endeavor to get that kind of attention, but deserves the kind of support. So please, if you can, drop a little bit on her medical bills support, and share the link with those in your network. I certainly appreciate it. I know she will appreciate it, and definitely deserves it. I thought I'm going to save that. And see if we can get him to come back with us. Cause I was reading, shout out to Dr. Tommy Curry. Please go watch our discussion with him, with Dr. Conadu. about Black masculinity and his work, The Man Not. But I was reading his more recently published essay about Black Lives Matter, and I definitely want to get into that. But I think I'm going to save that for when there's more time, or if he can be here with us to go in that. But the chapter title, "He Never Mattered: Poor Black Males and the Dark Logic of Intersectional Invisibility." It's a anyway. So we want to get into that. The Remix Morning Show back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Please be there and get some of that boom bap breakfast. And what else? I guess that's it. I'll be talking about Dr. Mjiba Freyawatt's new documentary about Pan-Africanism, the AAPRP, and Kwame Nkrumah. So got that coming up. Shout out to her. Congratulations on that, getting that done. And to all of you, thanks again for joining us. If there's more, please do not hesitate to share with us by
put it in the comments.
And we'll catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like, and much more, of course, throughout the day and week at Black Power Media. So stay tuned. And as Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.